Hey there. Welcome to episode 62 of Toy Talk with Mike and Chad. I'm Chad,
I'm Mike.
and this might seem a little weird. I'm back in the man cave or the toy room. First time since early February that this has happened.
Yeah,
Uh,
almost
I'm
6 months.
I'm mobile and happy to be back. So today we're going to be talking about a couple older Joe releases within like the last 6 months, but yeah, we're going to talk about the Vamp and we're going to talk about the missile launcher.
Yeah, so this will be kind of a vehicle episode, I
Mm.
guess. Both of these vehicles came with a figure, but yeah, for those of you who don't watch regularly, perhaps my co-host broke his leg in half back in February, slipped on some ice. So we did do a bunch of remote episodes where we were kind of on Skype together. But yeah, this is the first time you're physically back, so
Yeah,
welcome back.
thanks.
Um, and we did do a virtual Skype episode of all of our recent GI Joes about a month ago, but we ran long, and we wanted to talk about the GI Joe Jeep, the Vamp, in that episode. We actually did film a conversation about it, but when I was editing, I was like, "This is just too long. I'm going to cut this out, and we'll do another episode," because I knew that we were going to have this missile launcher coming. So I thought those would be a good complementary couple of pieces. So yeah, can we dive right in?
Let's dive right in.
All right. So first up, the Vamp. I have the box. I've got it tucked away somewhere right now. It was a pretty good size box, but I did shoot some footage of me actually opening the box and showing the pieces and assembling it. There wasn't a whole lot of assembly required, but maybe I'll cut that in right now,
Sure.
and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the thing outside of the box. So here is the Vamp inside of the box. You can see we've got Clutch. He's got a little window in the corner. And then there's some really nice photography on the front. Clutch with the Vamp. And you can also see kind of a tease, I guess, of something to maybe come in the future. We've got the Ferret with some unidentified Cobra Trooper there. So yeah, it looks pretty cool. Not much to see on the top except for the number. I know some collectors are concerned with having all the numbers. So you can see that Clutch is number 112. That doesn't really matter much to me, though. On the back, you've got another shot of Clutch and the Vamp itself, as well as all the various accessories that both of them come with. So you can see there's some weapons and a wrench for Clutch to carry, an alternate head by the looks of things, and a helmet. And then there's also some stuff to put on the Jeep, such as the gas canisters and the shovel and the axe. There's a few other shots here with some close-up details. So you can see the steering wheel, the dashboard there. And you can see here that it's got little mirrors and everything on the side. There's also a shot to show off Clutch's tattoo. And on the side of the box, there's some nice original artwork featuring Clutch. There you get another shot of the tattoo. Looks like he has a couple of tattoos there, maybe kind of running into one another. And yeah, pretty cool shot. Now let's get this guy opened up. So as soon as we undo that first piece of tape and you open the flap, you see there is a little kind of weapons case or storage locker like we've seen with all the other figures. So Clutch with Vamp. So all of the various accessories are going to be found in that box there. And then otherwise we can just slide this tray out. So here you see the tray now out of the outer box. We've got some instructions there. Although it doesn't look like we're going to need too serious a set of instructions because it looks to be pretty much built already. You can see that the tires are separate maybe, but otherwise looks to be a pretty complete vehicle. So I guess we'll start putting that together. So here is the Vamp, fresh out of the packaging. All I've done so far is put the wheels on. I'm happy to see that all of the stickers are already on it. I'm really not a fan of having to put all these little stickers on myself. So that's very cool. So yeah, now I've got the instruction booklet here. It tells me where to attach the additional pieces. And so yeah, here's the accessories. So that's what I'm going to do next. And here it is, fully assembled. So for Clutch, I've got the little pistol in his holster. The wrench goes on his like tool belt there. He's got his shotgun. As for the Vamp itself, I've got these little handles plugged in. I've got the lights. So you plug those on the top there as well as on the front. The shovel here was an attachment. These pieces here were add-ons. We've got the extra helmet there. And then there was the gun, and then the bullet belts and the ammo, as well as the gas tanks and the pickaxe here. And then there's also a fire extinguisher tucked there in the back as well. So pretty cool. Got lots of little bits and pieces. And yeah, it's pretty awesome. Okay, so we're back from that. So now here is the Vamp. So you guys just saw it, all complete. But yeah, here it is. It's a good sized vehicle. And what do you think of this bad boy?
I actually was surprised with the size of this thing. Like when it showed up in the box, I'm like, that is a massive box. How is this going to look outside? I wasn't expecting it to honestly have this scale. Like I know it was supposed to be 6-inch scale, but it's amazing. Like I love the assembly. It was fun to put it together. It was fun to kind of research where all the accessories went on it. And I'm a big fan of the vehicle. Like it even has shocks.
Yeah.
So I thought that was super cool. Like the detail on it.
Speaking of the assembly, I forgot about it because I've had this thing now for probably 2 months.
Yeah.
Because I had it for a while before we shot the last video, and now it's been a month since we shot that video. So yeah, I've been sitting on it for about 2 months, and I just had a flashback. I think I'm remembering. There's a fire extinguisher which is tucked in the back here. During the assembly, which I think you guys will see in the little clip I just put, that one I found I had to wrestle with a little bit. Like it didn't really clip into place. It kind of rattled around a little bit. I can't remember if it's settled now, but that's the one piece that was kind of
annoying to fit in.
Yeah, it was kind of annoying. But otherwise, yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of assembly required. You had to snap the wheels on, all these little shovels and stuff clipped on. But yeah, it was a 5-minute job.
And like the tow cable is super cool on the front.
Yeah. Where's it? Oh, my headlights are coming off here. Yeah, so there's some headlights just in front of the tow cable. But yeah. Yeah, got a little ropey dope here that comes out. And you just have to use your finger to wind it up. Again, I haven't handled this in a while. Yeah, so there's just a little roller there. You can roll the rope back up. But yeah, it's cool. And like, there's not a whole lot different as far as the sculpt goes from the vintage one.
Mm-hmm.
Like the original one had the gas cans on the back as separate pieces, and it's cool this one does. But this one does go the extra mile by giving you a pickaxe and the fire extinguisher as separate pieces, and the shovel. The shovel was part of the sculpt of the original one, like it was just in the plastic. So it's cool that you can take that off now. I like all those little extra details. It's really cool how the mirrors.
Yeah.
Like it has a rear view mirror, but I don't know if that one works quite the same. But the side mirrors are actual mirrors. Like I can see myself reflected in the mirrors right now, which is pretty cool.
It is cool, and I like. Typically, when I display my figures, I don't do dynamic poses or anything, but having the handrails on the, what do they call that? The crossbar of the Jeep?
Yeah, I guess.
Let's call it that. But on the door frame, I guess, having the handlebars, was able to do a lot of dynamic posing and kind of having Clutch stand out with a shotgun like he's trying to get in or he's trying to get out and shooting. And, you know, it's just super cool. I love how he fits in the Vamp himself. And
the steering wheel turns.
The steering wheel does turn. So I
didn't do that on the vintage one.
Super cool.
Yeah, I like this quite a lot. And yeah, you just mentioned Clutch, the driver that came with the vehicle. We'll talk about him in a second. But one thing about this vehicle that like I'm excited about it because this is a
Yeah.
classic GI
Yeah.
Joe vehicle. The original was from 1982, the very first year of GI Joe. I had the original. This is one of the few things that I talk a lot about how me and my brother Doug collected together. So like when a new wave of GI Joes would come out, we would do kind of pixies, and he'd get half and I'd get half, and we'd play together. So we kind of felt like we had the whole collection. It was rare when we got the same toy. Sometimes it was because my friend got me for my birthday a GI Joe that he already had or whatever. We both had a vamp of our own, which was cool because it wasn't a character, and it felt like this was should be part of GI Joe's like basic
Hmm.
fleet or whatever you call it. So having the two Jeeps, this was got a lot of play for me when I was a kid. It was small, it was durable, it was easy to get into. It was kind of useful for most terrains. Like I had like a snowmobile and stuff, but you couldn't use that, everywhere you were playing.
Yeah, for sure.
But the Jeep just kind of worked everywhere. Yeah, so I love this thing. So this was a vehicle I was happy to get. But I've talked before about the classified line. You and I are not made of money.
No, no. I
This,
know. I'm certainly not.
yeah. And when they first announced, like motorcycles and stuff are one thing. I don't care if they put out the occasional motorcycle or Serpentor's Chariot. I can handle that. But when they put out the first Hiss tank as basically a crowd funded thing
Mhm.
through their HasLab, because that thing cost, I don't know, it was close to I think $400 or something. And I thought, well, the Hiss tank is my all time favorite GI Joe vehicle. If there's one vehicle I'm going to have, it's the Hiss tank. So I bought it. I was not expecting them to do less than a year later another HasLab for the helicopter. Which the helicopter's cool, but I don't really have the same personal attachment to it. My brother had it, not me, when I was a kid. But it came with 3 or 4 figures, and the only way you could get those figures was to buy the helicopter. So I bought the helicopter, which was like another like $350, $400 or something.
American.
Yeah, and so I kind of accepted, like, okay, are they going to do this once a year? I'm going to have to suck it up and pay for this expensive vehicle. But then when they put this Jeep out, they just put this out not at retail, so you can't go into Toys R Us and buy it, but it was just available on the Hasbro's website. There was no pre-order, like it was. Well, there was a pre-order, but it came out very quickly
Very
afterwards.
quickly.
With those HasLabs, they won't even if they don't reach their funding goal, they don't make it. So that way they don't get any head start
Mhm.
on it. So it usually is like more than a year or so before it's in our hands. But this one here, it was just a couple of months later because they'd already started the production. And it has me a little bit worried of the status of the toy line because I don't know how many more of these vehicles are going to pump out, and I just can't afford it, or I don't have the space for it. So yeah, that is a concern.
It is a concern. Like now, I had a hard time paying that price because it was what about 250.
For this.
Yeah. By
Uh,
the time we had tax and shipping and everything and conversion,
I don't recall because what is it in American? Was it 120 or
I
something?
think it was 120. And then by the time we had shipping and thankfully there was no customs on it,
Yeah,
um, I had a hard time paying that price. Just I wasn't sure, and like you, I don't really need all the vehicles, but it was cool. It spoke to me, and where I'm
yeah,
getting back into GI Joe, I was like, need to have this. I was impressed with how big it was.
yeah. It is big. Although to be honest, when I'm holding it up on camera here, it doesn't seem as big, perhaps, but
It's at least a foot long.
it's big, and like to display it on a shelf
Yeah,
somewhere takes up a lot of space.
yeah.
Now we had heard this rumored. I don't know if you've seen this yet because I just saw this today, but there is um, the photo of the repaint of this. Which as soon as they put this out, I knew we would get this again
Yeah, I remember that conversation.
because, like with the Hiss tank, not only did they kind of promise us that this was only available in the HasLab, and they might release it at retail someday and kind of like trick us. But I don't think so because if it really going to cost them like $350 to $400 to sell, that's the kind of thing that won't move at retail at
Yeah,
that price. So I would understand that maybe that was a one off. But the fact that they're willing to put out this vehicle at this price point at retail, I was like, they invested in that mold.
mold.
They're definitely going to reuse it if this thing sells. And this thing sold out on Hasbro's website really quickly.
Mhm.
So I was like, at the minimum, we're going to get this painted in black for the Cobra Jeep, because that's what they did in the vintage line. And then probably again in the Tiger Force colors. And then God knows how many more times after that. And so next week, because we're filming this on what, June 2nd?
June 2nd.
So on June 4th, Hasbro's already announced they're doing like one of their live streams where they're
Yeah.
going to do some reveals. And it never fails whenever they have one of these live streams, the images always leak a day or two early.
Yeah.
So just today, it was the Cobra Stinger, which I'll put an image up here. But it's the repaint of this Jeep, except the Stinger had like doors that snap on the side and it had a roof. So yeah, we're getting that Jeep. Instead of a double Gatling gun on the back, it's got a missile launcher. It's got a driver, which is a Cobra Trooper in gray. It's cool, and for me, it's a must-have because I need that Stinger driver. But then this reminded me too, the Vamp itself, the good guy Jeep, also had a very prominent like secondary release where they used the snap-on doors and roof on this and released a brown like desert version and came with a tan version of Clutch. And that made me realize, like, oh yeah, we're probably going to get that too. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get a Desert Vamp, the Stinger, and the Tiger Force, and maybe more. But even if it's just that, 4 of these Jeeps, like
that's going to add up, and it's going to take a lot of space.
Yeah, and plus there's a lot of other vehicles that fall into this size. Like in the vintage line, are you familiar with the Awe Striker, which is kind of like the Dune buggy?
Yes.
Like that's one that they repainted a bunch of times down the road. Like they did an all black version of the Awe Striker and called it like Snake Eyes Ninja car or something. Like the Awe Striker is another one that's in this same scale that I think they could just put out at retail one day. And like the Cobra Fang is like the little small Cobra helicopter, which is like a one-man copter. Mm-hmm. It's definitely something that they could put out at this price point. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm like, this is going to be brutal on the wallet, but even more so for storage. I don't want to be buying this stuff and put it all in bins.
No.
Because all my vintage G.I. Joe vehicles are in bins.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're spending that much money, you definitely want to proudly display that.
And they break. Like if this thing, even if I wrap it in bubble wrap, if I put it in a bin and put other vehicles on top of it in the bin, the next time I haul it out, the mirrors are going to be broken off. That never fails. Every time I go to get out my old G.I. Joe vehicles, something new has snapped. And like I played not rough. I took care of my toys, but those things have been driving all around my living room and on my bed and out in the backyard. You know, they endured all my childhood in good shape, and then I put them in storage, and then they all break and bust, and it's disappointing. So yeah, these things here I do not want to buy and just put into bins, but I don't know where the hell I'm going to store them all. So, yeah. All right, so let's talk about Clutch. Here is Clutch. We'll put in a close-up shot of him. He is the Vamp driver. Thoughts?
Pardon me. Every time I'm fine, and then every time I come over, I seem to have coughing fits. Apologies for that. I like Clutch. My only problem with him, and I said that to you, was how loose the helmet is. Like, obviously, I'm not playing with my toys. I don't know about you guys, but having a helmet like that, it's fine. But if you pick it up, I know there are some other Joe figures where like the backpacks fall off if you handle them, which is kind of annoying.
Yeah.
But I like a snug fit, and that was just a little too loose for me. Otherwise, he's a solid character. I like the arm tattoos, and I thought his face was kind of cool. I struggled with whether I was going to put the helmet on him or the other helmet that he comes with. I put him in the Vamp with said helmet, and look, he's fallen off his stand already.
Yeah, he comes with a display base, which is nice. I wish all the G.I. Joe figures came with display bases. Or did he even come with that, or did I just put them
on? No, he didn't come with that.
Never mind, scratch that. Yeah, all the retro carded G.I. Joes come with these display bases, and I have him on one of my retro card bases. But yeah, he's got a little pistol that gets holstered onto his chest. He's got like a big shotgun, and then he's got a wrench, which goes on his little tool belt around his leg, which is pretty cool. Then he's got 2 helmets. His kind of standard green helmet, which is kind of emulates the look he had in 1982. Mm-hmm. And then this is kind of a cool thing, and there's not really any precedent for this, but they gave him a Steel Brigade helmet. So this is the same head that we see on like the Steel Brigade 2-pack that came out earlier. And I think that's a really cool option because there are some crazy people out there that have a lot more disposable income than I do that would maybe buy a fleet of these vamps and say, oh, I want to have, 5 of these vamps. So I know a lot of people bought multiple HISS tanks even.
Yeah.
And the HISS tanks comes with a generic HISS driver. So it makes sense that for every HISS, you would want a HISS driver, and that works. But for you to buy all these vamps and then you get 5 versions of Clutch, who's an individual guy, that kind of sucks. But by giving us this generic helmet, now you could make him just a trooper. Then you could have Clutch on one Jeep and then 4 troopers on the other. And that kind of justifies somebody buying multiples. So very smart move on Hasbro's part. But for me, I need a Clutch. So this helmet doesn't do much for me. However, if they do give us a desert version of this, a tan Clutch, which I actually kind of prefer the tan Clutch, because even though I had the Vamp as a kid, I didn't have I didn't have a Clutch that came with the Vamp, but I had the tan Clutch from the secondary release. So if I get that in the classified line and I have tan Clutch on my shelf, maybe I wouldn't want 2 Clutches on my shelf, so maybe that's when I'll replace him with the helmet, and this guy just becomes a trooper.
And I love the detail on that helmet with the teeth on the side.
Yeah, it's got that kind of Tiger Force deco where it's like a painted tiger mouth or something on the side. I agree the helmet is kind of loose. A little bit of stick tack would probably fix that up. Plus, I'm glad it's not too tight because I'd be worried I'd be scuffing their hair off and putting bald spots on them if their helmets were too tight.
But I mean, there's a difference between snug and like tight, right? So
yeah,
like General Hawk's helmet.
Yeah.
Now, for me, that was also a little too
loose.
Too loose.
Yeah, but I'm guessing that's why. Is they want to be mindful of the paint scrape,
which does make sense from a quality control perspective.
Yeah,
I guess.
But yeah, so Clutch is cool. He again is one of the from that 1982 line, which we refer to as the original 13 Joes, because there was like 13 good guys and 2 or 3 bad guys, depending on how you look at it. And every time they redo G.I. Joe, I always want them to kind of pay tribute to the original Joes. Like even with those live action movies that came out. It just feels a little weird that the team forms with, like, there's always Snake Eyes and there's Duke and stuff, but those characters didn't come. Well, Snake Eyes was around since the beginning, but like Duke and Roadblock, those guys came like later. And I'd rather see characters like Short Fuse and Grand Slam kind of at least present. They don't have to star in the movie, but I want to see the original guys there. And every time they reboot it, I'm always, are we even going to get these guys? And I've been pretty impressed with how many of the original 13 Hasbro has given us already. With because we've got Breaker and we've got Clutch and we've got Rock and Roll, and then Snake Eyes and Scarlet and Stalker. So like we're doing pretty good on the original 13. So I don't think they've announced any more yet, but I fully expect we'll get like Flash maybe in the near future because he was the laser trooper. He was kind of cool.
I basically sent a message to Mike saying, "Oh crap, they're doing like another G.I. Joe thing." This is going to hurt our wallets because the last time they announced, 8?
Yeah, hopefully. So at this thing on Tuesday, hopefully they don't announce 8 more. Usually what they've been doing is figures that they previously told us about, those guys go up for pre-order. Yeah. So on Tuesday, we will probably have to order like maybe 3 or 4 figures.
Yeah.
And then they're going to reveal figures that they only told us in name only. They're going to show us some either digital renders or some like prototype. And then they'll also probably announce a couple of new names that we're hearing for the first time. So, the only other one. So the only other new figure. So the Stinger Jeep is one of the new announcements, which we already know. One of the other new announcements is Sergeant Slaughter repainted in his Slaughter's Marauders colors.
Yeah,
which I have an image of that too. Which it's the same toy. Although looking at the pictures that I found online, it looks like he's in a wider box. So I think they're going to try and sell that Sergeant Slaughter as a deluxe figure. Even though I don't think he really has anything more than what the original Sergeant Slaughter came with. He still comes with the little mini action figure. Comes with a removable hat, sunglasses, a gun, obviously. I think maybe dog tags or something.
Probably his little cane.
But yeah, it's like if he's a deluxe figure, that means they're going to charge like probably $15 more, and it's like for what? So I could be wrong on that, but just from the images I saw online, he was in a wider box than the other figures. So yeah, he's going to be deluxe.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Or not. We'll see.
or not. Yeah. So anything more on Clutch and the Vamp?
Um, One thing, because I was fairly new getting back into it, the acronym VAMP doesn't make sense.
No, there's a lot of that in GI Joe, where the acronym, like
Because it
even
should be VMAP.
yeah, and even the hiss,
Mm-hmm.
like I forget what that stands for off the top of my head, but the words don't spell hiss. I think it's like there is no I. I think it's like high speed sentry.
Yeah.
So the HI of hiss are from the high speed, which doesn't really make sense for how acronyms are supposed to work. But they want them to have catchy names that kids can pronounce and stuff. So yeah, this was the Vamp. I'm sure if they'd really spent a little bit more time on it, they could have come up with a name that actually worked to spell Vamp. But anyway, it seems sort of like with Shield in Marvel. It's like they
Yeah.
came up with the idea, like this team should be called Shield, and then they said that should be an acronym for something, and then they'd come up with some bullshit to meet all those letters. So that happened with GI Joe a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, the Vamp, yeah, it doesn't make sense, but whatever. But yeah, cool vehicle. Definitely kind of takes me back to my childhood, opening this thing, putting it together, handling it. Like I like some of the sci-fi elements of GI Joe and everything, uh, but there is something about these classic military-looking vehicles that just, yeah, they really take me back to those early '80s and those first couple of years of GI Joe. Very, very cool. Now, the next thing we'll talk about. So here's the box. I still have it handy because we've had this for again a
The
couple of
strike
weeks.
team. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it arrived a couple of weeks ago, so
Yeah.
it's sitting out for a little while. So I haven't put the box away. But yeah, this is the Cobra. I'll just call it the missile launcher. It's called the HMS, which stands for
Heat Seek
Heat
Missile System.
Heat Seek Missile System, and it comes with a Techno-Viper figure. But yeah, what were you just saying?
I was gonna say the box, because it's part of like the HISS team. Still has the same box as the fire team and the
His tank.
HISS tank.
Yeah, which was cool. Like the his tank that I got on the HasLab, they released kind of a support team. So it was like a 3-pack in these black and red colors, which are the his colors, and it was troopers all painted. It was a range viper, a Cobra trooper, and a Cobra officer, and they were the fire team.
Yeah.
And now this thing here is intended again to be a support to the his tank. That's why it's colored in these colors. And this Techno Viper, he's in red and black also, which is something we've never had before. And so yeah, it's pretty cool. Now the size of this thing kind of surprised me.
Me too.
It's it's pretty big, and it might not look like it on camera here, but it is a pretty impressive piece of gear.
I'm
So
trying so hard not to make "that's what she said" jokes, but yes, no, this thing is massive, and it almost makes me jealous that I don't have the HISS tank. I mean, I was jealous enough anyway, but
yeah,
knowing that this hooks up to the HISS tank and I'm missing that, I was like, man. And I wasn't expecting the missiles on it to be
so big.
as sturdy and
Yeah.
that size. I was expecting like maybe little
Now,
excuse me, mini plastic missiles.
I will say, so the Vamp as well has a tow cable. So
Yeah,
this does
hook on the Vamp.
It's hard for me to do right now because the little thing's moving around. But yeah, this does hook onto the back, so he can drive around and tow that. So it wouldn't really make sense for the Vamp to tow this. But
Unless they stole it.
now that we know we're getting the Stinger,
That makes
it
sense.
it alleviates the you not having the hiss because at least you have something to tow it around.
Yeah, and the Stinger will have missiles, which I'm assuming would be smaller versions of these ones.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. But I love the attention to detail on these missiles. The Cobra logo on it, Heatseek X03, the number, the anti jam system. I
Yeah.
love the little control panel on the side.
Yeah, there's a little panel that opens up. You can see some of the inner workings.
And it has like a control panel. You can make the Techno-Viper repaint look like he's fixing it. There's all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah, and it does have, so it has these wheels which allow it to be towed and pulled along, but it also has these four legs, two big legs in the front, and two little stubby legs in the back. But once you do that, it grounds it, so
Yeah.
you can just display this
Stationary.
stationary like this, which is what I always did when I had this as a kid. I never really towed it around. I always just kind of had it off to the side, and at the Cobra headquarters, and they would defend with this thing. So
The assembly on this thing was a little difficult. I found specifically with the anti-jam missile launcher on the top because it didn't necessarily make a loud click when you put it in. So I was like, oh no, I don't want this to snap and break. So you really had to kind of play with it a little bit. But just like the Vamp, this one was so fun to put together, and seeing all the little components that made it what it is.
Now, again, I know you weren't as big. Like, you're 5 years younger than me, so you
Yeah.
got into G.I. Joe a little bit later. Did you have a Vamp of any sort when you were a kid?
No, I didn't have a Vamp.
I assume you didn't have one
I
of these
didn't
things
have
either.
one of these. I essentially had the shuttle.
This is a good place to start.
I had the shuttle. I had Serpentor and his little chariot, if you want to call that a vehicle. Pretty much that. Mostly I had figures.
Okay. Now, the interesting thing about this piece is I had a Cobra missile launcher when I was a kid. It was one of the earliest G.I. Joe vehicles that I had. But it's one of those things that, like, it wasn't until I was an adult collector and the internet existed that you found out some history about it. So what's interesting is my brother, he had the Vamp, the green Jeep, and that came with Clutch. The reason I had the Jeep without Clutch is because I got it, I think, secondhand or something at some point later. But I also had a black Cobra Jeep, which was a repaint of the Vamp, and it came with a black missile launcher, just like this, except scaled down for these small size JJs. And the missiles were all black, so the whole thing was all black. And my Jeep did not have doors or a roof. It was exactly like the Vamp, just black. And then later, they released the Cobra Stinger, which was kind of the repaint of the Jeep again in black, but with the gray doors and the gray roof, and with the missile launcher in the back instead of the gun, because my black Jeep has a gun, not a missile launcher.
Okay.
But again, I didn't think anything of all that. But it wasn't until, like, again, as an adult collector and websites like Yojo and stuff came up that you can kind of use as a reference tool. The Jeep that I have and the all black missile launcher was never released in the United States. And it is a very highly sought after, expensive collectible because it was a Canadian exclusive. It was only available at Sears in Canada. So again, I wouldn't have known that as a kid. Like, there might have been a little sticker on it that said only in Sears or something, but it didn't mean anything to me back then.
Pre-internet again.
Yeah, so like all my life I had this Cobra Jeep that didn't have doors on it or anything, and I didn't realize what a rare piece. Same as having the black missile launcher with the black missiles. Because so the original Vamp came out in 1982. The Sears exclusive that I had came out in 1983, and it wasn't until 1985 that there was a Sears release only available in the United States that I never knew about that had this. So it was the black missile launcher with the red missiles, and it came with a red HISS tank, and it got towed by the HISS tank. So this thing here, the fact that it's black with red missiles, this is like a remake of that 1985 thing that most American kids would have grown up with. It's technically not a remake of the 1983 all black missile launcher that I had. But again, I did not realize what a rare piece I was sitting on. In preparation of doing this video, I went on eBay to see what they were going for, and there wasn't even any listed.
Wow.
So yeah, when there's nobody in the world even selling one of these, and there's none on the recently sold or anything,
That means something.
Yeah, it definitely means it'd be pricey. and hopefully mine's still in pretty good shape. The last time I looked at it, it was like my Jeep was working. I had all the missiles still. But yeah, not that I'm looking to sell anything, but it's kind of nice to know when you have something that you're like, I had no idea this was rare, but apparently it is. So yeah, it is cool. I doubt they'll ever release this in this size with the all black missiles and everything, which is kind of what I'd like to see because it makes me more nostalgic for what I had as a kid.
It'd be cool if they just repainted the missiles themselves.
Yeah, I can't imagine they'd ever do it. Like, there's probably keen people out there that would just paint these and say, well, if you want them black, just paint the missiles black.
Yeah.
But that would never work out for me. By the way, yeah, this thing kind of goes up and down, so you can, when it's being towed, you can keep those nice and straight. When it's firing missiles, you lift them up nice and tall. This thing spins around 360. It's a nice little piece. All right, and so this also came with a figure, so let's take a look at him. Thoughts on the Techno-Viper?
Now, I was really excited for the purple Techno-Viper.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, there's no way they can make a Techno-Viper better. And
Yeah.
then they release them in these colors that go with the his theme, right? So I it's a hard sell for me. I don't know what color I appreciate more. I think I do like the original purple because
Yeah.
it goes back to the classic days, but I really like this color scheme on the Techno-Viper. And it was super cool to have another guy, you
Yeah.
know, that looks somewhat similar. So in case I don't stand him next to the thing, it's like an army builder, but at the same time, it's not. And there are a couple subtle differences, I think, especially with the hoses that were on there.
Yeah, there's some of the accessories may be painted differently and
Yeah,
stuff.
but like, I love that he's got the ability to look at this little hologram thing, and
Yeah.
most of my comments are going to reflect what they did with the purple Techno Viper, so I don't have a lot more to say, but I like that black logo on the front, and the purple one had the silver logo, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's a nice little change up, but yeah, he's a solid character.
Yeah, I like him a lot because like I had the Techno Viper when I was a kid, and
Mhm.
I loved that figure. So for me, getting that purple one that came out just a month or so before this guy came out was really exciting for me. He's one of those Cobra troopers I really wanted to see redone. Um, and I didn't know how I felt about it, getting him in a different
Mhm.
color like this. He does look really good. It definitely won't overshadow the purple one for
Yeah,
me, but it is a really nice color scheme. Like, he
yeah,
does look really good, and I like the fact that we have that fire squad that has grown now because
yeah.
the Hiss tank itself came with 3 Hiss pilots, and then I've got 3 guys in the fire team, and now I've got this guy. So it's like a nice little squad of
Yeah,
seven
exactly.
seven guys to go with my Hiss tank. It's really cool, and yeah, I don't know, it's nice, but when it comes time for me to do my best action figures of this quarter,
You'll keep him off, right?
I think like the purple one will easily
Trump that guy.
trump this guy. Whereas last year, if any of you guys watched my best of 2023, we got 2 different repaints of the Range Viper last year. So we got one that was based on the vintage toy from the
Mhm.
80s, and then they gave us the red, black, and gray one for this Hiss Fire Squad. And I was a lot more torn on that one. Partly maybe because I didn't have the Range Viper when I was a kid, so I didn't have that like attachment to the color the same way I did with the purple Techno Viper. But yeah, he's cool. I like him. Yeah, lots of neat. Like, we did talk about this in the last
Mhm.
video when we reviewed the other guy, but he's got a lot of cool accessories, just like the vintage one. He's got different tools, like a wrench and a hammer and everything that go into his. They can be stored in his backpack. He's got the gun with the hose, and yeah, he has that cool little holographic like blueprint
Yeah,
or
he's
whatever.
doing like an arm reading. It's
Yeah, it's a neat
it's
thing.
amazing, and I like that's one thing I really genuinely like about this style backpack, and I wish Hasbro would start doing that with some of their accessories, and they have
Hmm.
build in little areas for the tools to sit. Like some of them, I know they have like pegs on the side where they always fall out, or there's not that much structure to the backpack, but
Yeah.
having a spot where everything goes is fantastic.
Yeah, I think Classified has done a really good job of most of the figures carry everything they
Mhm.
come with. The GI Joes of the modern era, like the 4-inch figures,
Yeah.
they often came with way too much stuff. Like if you give a guy 4 guns, like
Yeah.
he only has 2 hands, and oftentimes they couldn't really make the little holsters work on those figures, so they just came with extra stuff, and that's why I have bins and bins full of extra accessories from other toy lines. But my bag of stuff for Classified is much smaller. I don't have that much extra stuff. Anyways, we're creeping up. It's like we've been at this for about almost 40 minutes, and that's usually when my tablet time's off. So we could just keep going, but I think we've said all we need to say for this
Yeah.
episode. All right, so maybe
Plus, you're adding in the footage and everything. So,
right. So yeah, that'll extend this a little bit. So yeah, that's all we really wanted to talk about this episode. Is just these last 2 GI Joes. We'll have more GI Joes to talk about soon because we're pre-ordering probably 4 or 5 this coming Tuesday, 2 days from now. But yeah, we're going to do another episode tonight. Since this is my first time getting Chad back, I want to take advantage of him. So we're going to do another episode. So you'll see that soon. So stay tuned. And you finally got some new toys again.
I can start. I'm officially back at my part-time job. I work a full-time and a part-time job, so I am back to almost having disposable income again.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to.
So we'll be back with another episode with your toys soon. But okay, yeah, we got about 10 seconds. So like, subscribe, comment below. Ciao.
Keep collecting.